Now, 9 Sheffield Labour Muslim councillors have issued a joint statement condemning what they describe as Israel's relentless, indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. They're among more than 150 Muslim Labour councillors and dozens of MPs who've demanded that Keir Starmer call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Also this week, the results were revealed of a survey of British Muslims asking who they voted for in 2019 and who they would vote for if there was an election tomorrow. 71% of people said they voted for Labour 3 years ago, but there's now a 66% drop in support for the Labour Party. I can talk now to Azza Qayyum, who's the CEO of an organisation called MEND, which stands for Muslim Engagement and Development. They assisted with the survey. Thanks so much for joining me this morning, Azza. Tell me more a bit about the results of this survey.
Yes, thank you. Well, more than just over 30,000 people, 99% of whom are Muslim, actually replied to the survey. And essentially around about 70% of them said that they were 2019 Labour voters. And, about 4% were saying that they would vote Labour if there was a general election now. And this is sort of in line with what we're hearing on the ground as well, where people, traditionally around about 8% of the Muslim community were voting for the Conservatives, and around about 70% were voting for Labour back in 2019. And people are now absolutely furious, and it's not just the Muslim community. Yesterday I was in the demonstration in London where organisers believed about 500,000 people attended. And honestly, I could just see a sea of humanity in all directions. And there was large banners, Jews against the genocide, held by the Jewish community, big Jewish community, sort of pro-Palestinian bloc at the demonstration. There were, people of all religions, no religion. I saw LGBTQ against the genocide banners, and obviously Muslim community people as well. So I think there's a huge strength of feeling here within the community, not just the Muslim community, but the community in general. 78% of British people in a separate poll have said that they want a ceasefire now. More than 80 parliamentarians have now called for a ceasefire. I think there's a real groundswell of opinion, and not just amongst the British Muslim community here, for a ceasefire.
The question, the sort of natural follow-on question from that, though, is what response, if it's not what we're seeing right now, what response would have been acceptable to you, to men, to the Muslim population? Do you think, if not this, because surely no one can argue that Israel had to respond to those horrific events on October the 7th against an organisation, Hamas, that say quite openly that they want the full destruction of Israel. So if not what we're seeing now, what would have been an appropriate response?
I think an appropriate response would have been to look at this in the entire historical context. What happened on October the 7th shouldn't have happened. A single loss of life, civilian or otherwise, a single loss of life is wrong, and we should absolutely be ensuring that there is no loss of life in Palestine or anywhere else. But I think the correct response would have been to look at the historical context, to say this is not out of context. Yes, somewhere up to 200 or possibly more Jewish people in Israel died on the October 7th.
Sorry, 200. It was more than that. It was
2,000. Apologies.
Yeah, okay.
Apologies. Sorry. The figures that are being quoted are around about 2,000.
And in an incredibly horrific way, these were civilians, children, pregnant women, elderly people.
I mean,
hunted.
Like I said, any loss of life is wrong, and we shouldn't have had any on that day. But we have to put it in its context. Tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians have been bombed to smithereens by Israel before that act. Since that day, more than 7,000 Palestinian civilians have been bombed by Israel, with more than 2,000 of those being children. If we carry on with sort of deaths for deaths, you bomb us, we bomb you, you bomb us, we bomb you, and we just have endless deaths, and an eye for an eye and the whole world is blind. That's at the moment. I think the correct response is to look at it in its context and say this didn't just come out of a vacuum. This is from decades of occupation, from a brutal siege that's been going on since 2006.
I suppose
there are children that are born in Gaza that have got to adulthood that have only ever seen a siege. I think the correct response would be to say, if we bomb Gaza, not only will we be killing thousands of civilians, mostly women and children, in this densely populated area, we may actually be killing those very hostages as well. And I think so. That's where I got my 200 figure from. It was the hostages.
But surely you would expect a response against Hamas, an organisation that obviously that carried out these atrocities. And
this would be my response. This would be my response is to say this is the same Hamas that back in 2004, 2006 was willing to speak, was willing to talk, was willing to back down, has already started releasing hostages. What we have to do is de-escalate. What we have to do is use all of the levers of power that there are against Hamas within Qatar, within Turkey, within other places, and de-escalate the situation. Hamas, maybe if Israel bomb enough Palestinians and enough Palestinian homes and maybe kill 50,000, 60,000, 80,000, I don't know what the number will be if there's a full-on ground incursion, etc. Maybe militarily they might, for now, wound Hamas, but the idea will be made even bigger by all that bombing, by all that killing. If you kill, 50,000 people, let's say, they will have family members of 200, 300,000, contacts, friends, etc. And all you're doing is radicalizing an entire population. The better thing to do is to speak, to talk, is to call for ceasefire, is to call for peace, is to call for all sides of this to de-escalate, to calm down, and for Jewish people to have peace in the Holy Lands, for Muslims, for Christians to have peace in the Holy Lands. And you've got to remember, this is not just a Jewish Muslim thing. There are Christian Palestinians. Al-Ahli, the hospital that was hit, was a Christian hospital. A few days later, there was a church that was hit. There are on the Israeli side. I mean, apart from the mainly Jewish population of Israel, there are others that are involved as well. And actually, what we want is what we've had for so long, previous to the last 75 years of conflict, is that actually Muslims, Jews, Christians, and others have lived peacefully side by side for 1,000 years prior to that in the Holy Land, and that's what we want to get to, where nobody's killing each other. But that's not going to happen. You can't bomb your way to peace.
I just want to go back to the feelings amongst British Muslims and how significant this shift is. Because obviously it's happened in a very short space of time. I mean, the last time we had results for was 2019. Obviously, that's several years ago. But I mean, are you suggesting that it is specifically this, that had you taken this survey prior to the October the 7th, we would be looking at results much closer to the 2019 results?
Yes, much closer. I mean, look, there will have been some reduction in that vote, I think, because some within the community had issues with some of the other sort of, in inverted commas, broken promises from the pledges that Keir Starmer had put out, but within the survey that asked, that specifically, have you changed your mind because of what's happened recently? And again, well in excess of 90% of the people that were surveyed said that they had, both for the Conservatives and for the Labour Party. I mean, I don't think that the Muslim community or the community at large are going to let the Conservative Party off the hook for this as well. And this isn't just sort of some, they've broken a promise, or there's a pledge that they've let people down. We are watching what many have described as ethnic cleansing and a prelude to genocide taking place on our TVs. There's images of legs of babies sticking out from under rubble that we're seeing on our TV. And I think, I was marching yesterday And there were Muslims, like I said, non-Muslims, Jewish people, black people, white people, people of all ethnicities, religions, and holding banners to do with their sexuality, etc. They were clear. I mean, 76% of the British population are saying ceasefire now. I think people have just had enough of the death and destruction on their screens. I really can't remember anything like this.
I mean, and the images from the protests are very, very striking indeed in terms of the numbers of people there. Lastly, because we are running out of time, do you think there's any way back for the Labour Party from this, or does this represent such a monumental shift in feeling that it would be very difficult for Labour to regain the trust of British Muslim voters?
I think that there was a window of opportunity. I think it's almost closed, if not closed. And it's really down to the fact that, yes, there are now a number of parliamentarians that have started calling for a ceasefire, which I think is excellent and really, really commendable. But I think that the leadership and still not calling for an immediate ceasefire. I think the fact that Keir Starmer hasn't apologised for the fact that he said that Israel had the legal right to stop water power and electricity to the and fuel to the beleaguered civilians of the Gaza Strip. I think that there is possibly a window of opportunity, but it's closing very, very fast. And to watch a genocide unfold on TV, and for the both leading parties to just be egging it on. Essentially, it's just unbelievable. I think that, and I don't think there's much of a chance, but maybe there's a tiny window of opportunity. It's closing fast.
Azza Qayyum, thank you so much for joining us this morning. He's a CEO of an organisation called MEND.